It is time, ladies and gentlemen, for a match of epic proportions as we get into our second semifinal here for WCS Fall. And it is. I mean, we've got the story. Everything is set. One man meant to be unstoppable. Can he be defeated by our Blue Protoss in the Northwest, representing the United States of America? He is Neeb.
Sends out a very early probe here. Most likely, love it, mate, I love it. Most likely just to block the hatchery here by Serral. I kind of like that. Drogo has been doing that a lot over the last few months. We'll talk more about it soon. Of course, over here in the right bottom side, you're looking at the main base of the reigning world champion of StarCraft 2. It is the one and only Serral. Just want to talk about PvZ stuff immediately, Nate. I really love this matchup, man. Like, I look at that pre-game graphic, and like, they don't look like each other, but in a way they sort of do as well, right? Because they've got the same posture, the same look out of their eyes.
They're both lanky characters.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, Neeb is the absolute star when it comes to non-Korean StarCraft of 2017. Serral, of course, the absolute star of, well, StarCraft in general in 2018. So for me, this really kind of feels like the foreign El Clasico, you know, like Barcelona versus Real Madrid, the Jets versus the Giants, Neeb versus Serral. This is really what gets me going. I really love seeing these two go up against each other. And even though Serral has been doing very well against Neeb, I generally believe him when he says like, Neeb is actually maybe the most difficult to defeat, because the games in the past have been incredibly close between them. And even the most recent time in Kiev, the score was 1-1. I said this before on the desk, but Neeb was absolutely winning Thunderbird. 4 base Protoss against 3 base Zerg. He should have won that, and then it could have been a completely different tournament. So TLDR, Nate, I'm hyped. These two guys going up against each other is awesome.
I couldn't agree more, Kev. I mean, Neeb, this whole tournament has just looked so sharp. And not to say that he doesn't normally look good, but the build up to this in Challenger, I've talked about it time and time again. He shows a little bit of weakness sometimes. You're like, okay, yeah, he still wins, but it wasn't as clean as it should have been for a player of his standard. No, that has not been the case lately. He has looked so good in form over the last 2 months, and it's had me really stoked going in, getting the 3-0s. He's had that the face of no mercy here in Montreal, and I think that he does stand up as possibly the best possible chance of keeping Serral out. When we looked at that bracket, I'm like, all right, I think a Neeb-Serral match, I'm already combining their names in my head, Kevin, would end up being the most gnarly one we could get.
Now this is going to be interesting. There's no Roby yet. Oh no, this is actually a massive scout, because I think now he builds a Robo. But look at this happy little Zergling just taking a little tour in the main base. Sees the Twilight Council. For a second, I actually thought that Neeb maybe wanted to do some resonating glaives here. It's not standard, but since he also forced Serral to take his natural way further away than you would normally like to as a Zerg, I was like, I wouldn't actually hate it to see resonating glaives in a game 1 of a best of 5.
That's certainly one of the Neeb specials, actually. One of his favorite 2 base pushes that we've seen quite a few times against Zerg. Neeb's PvZ has always been a point. I think that people would agree is pretty strong. We've got a lot of legendary games. We've made our jokes, of course, about the Fist of Neeb and all that, but I think it is worth mentioning that the playstyles that Neeb's gone for, he's not one of those players who shied away from the Golden Armada, and if it comes to it, I'm interested to see how he can roll in the late game against Serral too.
Especially now, right? Because we've seen it in the past, and obviously there was a point where we're like, holy moly, the Zerg late game is good. But I actually really believe that the most recent changes have a pretty serious impact.
I agree.
The infested Terrans are worse, carriers are a little bit better. I've noticed the difference myself in these fights. I'm suddenly like, hey, I still do have interceptors. Well, before I was always out of them. So I really think that like a good mixture of like maybe an Archon or 2 and then a couple disruptors and a whole bunch of carriers with good upgrades absolutely has a good shot in defeating Zerg late game right now. But we'll see how this plays out. I want to keep a close eye on what Serral's doing here as well, because we often talk about all these macro games and it's going to be great, and then he just Nidus us in game 1 of the series. And this really feels like potential Nidus to me as well. Double Overseer here. He's already making a lot of roaches, firing up some extra queens. Don't trust him, Nick.
Ooh, he's going to go for a Dropper Lord as the Dark Templar get warped in at the Prism. So, of course, you can always go for the gut check with the DTs, but Serral, not the player to really be vulnerable to that, didn't want to get the Spore, so it's going to be... This doesn't quite have the money to build the other 2 DTs. Actually doesn't have the supply. We need to wait for this pylon to finish before he can warp in more Dark Templar.
These links are a little bit late, obviously, in an ideal world. Oh, is he going to go for the Dropper Lord play? This kind of stuff is super annoying, actually, Nate, because you're just busy warping in Dark Templars on the other side of the map, so you can't warp in anything in your main base. Obviously, maybe you can a little bit lock in something. You can warp in a Zealot or a 2, but this kind of stuff is annoying to deal with. It does seem like Neeb's gates were ready. He's going to go for a couple of adepts. Oh, careful, though, with the Prism.
He can't do anything with it. There are too many roaches already waiting for those Archons. The adepts do prevent that Overlord from dropping the lanes and killing much of anything. Just nibbled away a little bit of health on that pylon. A Forge is going to start. Of course, those links can also just run through the base and get scouting information too, Kev.
I hope that Neeb is paying attention now, that he's not too distracted by this link drop, because the Queens are still looking for that Warp Prism. There is a Spire, Nate, that's already almost halfway done. This is something that Serral is a massive fan of. There is an Observer flying around, probably looking for it. Did the Observer see it? Yes, it did. Thank you for showing us, Mapo. So Neeb knows what he's up against. What do you do right now, Nate? Do you hit a timing before the mutas are out? That always seems so appealing, but then suddenly they show up with 27 Ravagers and Mass Roach. And you're like, okay, I shouldn't have moved out, shouldn't I?
Yeah, it's one of the really tricky parts about Serral's play. Throughout Challenger this whole year, one of the big things we got to see were Protoss players that didn't respect the mutas. Serral will dial it up, and if you don't go for a Stargate response, now presumably, of course, he has to go mutas, but the Spire's about to finish. I think that is what we are going to see.
Yeah.
If you don't respect it, he will decide, oh, you know what? Oh, yeah, okay, I'll just keep building Mutalisks. We'll get up to that 30, 35 count, and suddenly this whole game is going to get real awkward for you because Archons are good, Kev, and Warp Prisms can do a bit of juggling with them, but they're not going to deal with a well-microed, flock of mutas that are trying to bounce between that main and that natural. So I'm interested to see whether Neeb responds with the Stargate and whether or not Serral doubles down on the Mutalisks when he finds out if there are Phoenix coming.
I think Neeb is just going to try to win this game quickly, Nate. He's going to get a cannon or 2. He's been getting a lot of gates, but not that many gases. I think he's probably just going to attack with maybe 2 Archons. And then if he feels like he truly needs it, a couple of Stalkers. But I would have liked to see him move out already if this was the plan, right? Like, can you really just sit back now forever? It's so hard to defend against Mutas if you don't have Blink Stalkers or those Phoenixes. No, that's not going to work. I mean, the only thing that Neeb really has that's good against this is the Warp Prism and the 2 Archons.
Yeah, and I mean, Archon's really good against mutas, but they don't have range. That's one of the problems. Look at that Archon. Yep. He's a little bit too thick to reach those Mutalisks. Of course, the Prism can elevate them up, but suddenly your whole entire game plan just becomes controlling a Prism and 2 Archons. You're not really moving out.
Look at it.
Makes it harder to get those expansions as well.
Yeah, he's going for it, though, and I think that's the right thing to do. I almost feel like it's a tiny bit late. Look at Serral as well. Serral immediately firing up all the Roaches, all the Ravagers, a couple of Lings on the way already. So Serral knows he's already been doing some decent damage here. He needs to survive, and if Serral does defend this push, well, then he's in a fantastic position here in game 1.
I mean, this is a lot from me, but there are, what do we got? 4 Immortals and an Archon with some sentries here. There's a ton of, we got 26 Roaches, 5 Ravagers, and he's even getting the Lings in there too. Now, I think this bridge probably be the worst place in the world you could try to engage in a choke point with Roaches, so need to be careful. At the same time, of course, Serral wants to try to hold him back. These Stalkers, maybe trim the fat on the Mutalisks just a little bit. Blink is on the way, but it's a little ways away.
There's a good scout here, though. Serral sees the additional gases being taken, so I think Serral knows right now that Neeb is not going to commit. But look at the production depth. Again, 23 Banelings speed. Serral has done this so many times. He shows up with a couple of mutas, he's annoying, and then he basically just attacks you as soon as he is maxed. And I think the only way you can truly hold this is with a lot of cannons and a lot of shield batteries and a little bit of juggling. Like, if you use the Warp Prism well, you save a couple of these Archons, it's going to be great. But Serral is maxed out, and his army is quite a bit bigger than the army of Neeb.
He's got 20 more Banes coming in behind this. The Force Fields are going to go, but the Ravager Piles are going to break them open. The Banelings starting to come in, trying to get into the center mass to break the shields up of all these units. Immortal barriers being triggered. Immortals are starting to fall with the Archons. More Stalkers warped in without Blink. Not a whole lot of micro to be done, and the Banelings get right in the center, splashing all over absolutely everything, Kev. Now, the Roaches and Ravagers on their own are not going to be able to fight against this since 2 Immortals are still alive. There is still an Archon. The Mutas look for a little bit of poking damage on the side of this. 4th base, however, has been secured by Serral in the middle of this. You know what? Neeb didn't really lose too much of his economy there. Some powerful tech units, but not all of them.
No, I'm actually very impressed with the way that Neeb handled that. I think Serral was a tiny bit indecisive with the Banes. In general, you don't want to use Banelings or Stalkers, and he's like, well, that's pretty much the only thing I can settle for, but it just took a little while. while. Neeb did a really good job in buying time and obviously utilizing the Prism. I personally think that Serral should have brought the Mudas with the fight, so you can just right-click on that War Prism, and that makes it a lot harder for Neeb to do some effective micro there. But yeah, excellent defense by Neeb. He's still down a tiny bit in supply, but his army is becoming way more powerful and impressive than the army of Serral.
Yep. I definitely agree with you there. At the moment, just continuing to add Archons via the Dark Templar warp-ins, getting those Immortals. And it's the same composition out of Serral. He's just trying to use large numbers, running by towards that natural expansion. Takes a little bit of a poke. The Stalkers are here. Kind of surprised he doesn't try to force it too much there, but I think he realizes he is at risk of overextending if he throws away 2 armies like this.
Yeah, he's getting +2 as well. It's halfway done, but Neeb is already getting +2 for the potential next fight. It's definitely not going to be ready yet for Serral. Serral's got a lot, and those links are going to be very, very problematic for the Stalkers if the Archons disappear. But how quickly can you make 4 Archons disappear?
Not that quickly. Archons are pretty strong units, yes. Quite a few shields in the 300 range. Mutas are poking in the main to force some warpins and distract right as Serral tries to make this front push. Uses the Corrosive Bile to break the force fields. We do have one softened up Archon in the front, is going to get popped. Second one trying to soak up. Good split so far from Neeb. Talking about exactly what you had mentioned is just that those Banelings not crazy effective against the Stalkers. But if this army eventually gets boiled down to only Stalkers, then it does become a problem. You need to make sure that you keep the Immortals alive to anchor. And honestly, 1 or 2 of the Archons so that the Zerglings don't just flood and surround everything too, as Serral has put in quite a few. But you can see based on the units lost time, he hasn't gone for a very complicated army, Rotterdam.
No,
he's just gone for a big one.
Yep. But he is getting up to Hive. He already has +2 melee now, so he can get Adrenal Glands as well. That's obviously going to make his army a little bit more powerful. Could get a couple of Vipers here, actually, because there's no Templar Archives, right? Like, he's only getting these Archons from Dark Templars.
Yeah.
So imagine if you land an Abductor or 2 on these Archons or Immortals. That'd be very, very annoying to deal with. You know, I think it says enough about the fact that Neeb has not been able to do anything on the other side of the map. That doesn't feel like Neeb. Isn't Neeb supposed to be that super annoying Protoss play that always has Zealots here, a Dark Templar there, a War Prism showing up in the main? Neeb is defending all right, don't get me wrong. I actually think he's doing a really good job, but there hasn't really been any offense by Neeb in the last 5 minutes.
No, I mean, he's been stuck on the defense, right? The whole entire time. We haven't seen him be able to slip any Zealots out or DTs to the expansions of Serral. And to your point as well, not having the Templar Archives, the tech's been very limited. Banelings are just going to try to crash over. Now, keep in mind, those are +2 Banelings, so one tap and those probes, if they're able to get there, only one needs to connect, and it does! 20 probes blown up by Serral. These Stalkers are trying to hold the door against some Zerglings running by at the same time, almost losing one of them there, but oh, this army is so big for Serral, trying to crash in. On top of this, lots of Banelings coming in. Stalkers trying to blink back, but that is going to expose the Immortals and the Archons. Another Archon is going to be added in this. That Prism desperately trying to get some good micro, and we still have a couple of the Immortals. And as long as this army can stand strong after the Banelings are gone, the Ravagers themselves are quite squishy.
I think Neeb is all in at this point, Nate. He tried to get a fort base multiple times. It kept getting cancelled by Serral. Now he also lost a whole bunch of workers. I think Neeb had enough of this game. He's going to try to win with the units that he has. These first two Archons actually did a pretty good job in soaking up a lot of units, but it doesn't really matter what Serral loses. He always seems to be maxed out, and that is an absolutely ridiculous amount of Banelings.
Yeah, the Warp Prism did try to go for a reinforcement warp in, but Biles immediately forces to move. GG is called, and Serral takes game number 1 against Neeb, completely dismantling this opener from the American Protoss.
I almost feel like we're watching like some sort of a Dragon Ball Z episode where Serral is like one of these evil, I don't know, final bosses or something that has a superpower that's like, I'm gonna take away one of your abilities and you can't use it anymore. And Neeb is like, oh no, I can't attack anymore. And Serral's like, yeah, the only thing you can do is defend, because that is so not like Neeb, right? Neeb is supposed to always be there. He's supposed to be so annoying to play against. He always has 2 adepts, an Oracle. I know he didn't have Stargate here at first, but there's supposed to be DTs, Zealots, Prisms, anything on the other side of the map. To not see a single unit cross the halfway point of the map for like 5 minutes straight, that's so not like Neeb. But that also goes to show how incredibly freaking good Serral is. Because that's not because Neeb suddenly forgot how to play PvZ. It's just that Serral is so in his face, keeps him so busy, that he does not allow Neeb to play his own builds.
Yeah, and Neeb, a player that likes that Warp Prism a lot, not able to make use of it due to Mutalisk pressure from Serral. And to what you pointed out at the start of that game, the Zergling got in and saw that really fast Twilight Council. So Neeb probably wasn't feeling very comfortable with the idea of trying to go for one of his classic 2-base adept pushes. And
I don't know if that was his plan. I mean, it could have been,
it's
right?
off the table when it gets scouted.
But it felt a bit awkward as well, because that Dark Shrine definitely wasn't immediate, and then when he had that Warp Prism on the other side of the map, he warped in like one Archon, and then like the second Archon. It just felt a bit off, right? Normally, that phase in the game is supposed to be a little bit smoother. No, obviously no man overboard just yet. We know that Neeb is an absolute veteran of StarCraft right now. He's been here time and time again. He knows what it takes to bring a series back, but I must say that is the kind of game where it's not just that you can really pinpoint like, okay, this is where it went wrong or that's where it went wrong. It just kind of feel like almost everything went wrong for Neeb. He was only defending and then eventually just ran out of steam. Could not get a fourth base up. Tried like 3 or 4 times, I believe it was, and then he's just like, yeah, whatever, I'll just attack and I guess I can win it.
Well, despite how well Neeb's played in this tournament, he did say that it would be a good result for him if he could just get to Serral and lose. Can he prove himself wrong? We're loaded in to Acropolis in the bottom right. He is the blue Protoss player. He is Neeb.
This is so funny, Nate. Because I think back of the last time that these two played against each other in WCS, and they had a game on Acropolis, and guess what this man did? The exact same thing as he's doing right now. We'll talk about that soon. Representing Ants, it is the world champion of StarCraft 2, Serral.
Roly-poly, explodey, corrody, boys. That works.
All right, no scout yet, by the way. Now, what I said, right? The last time they played Acropolis in WCS, the exact same thing happened. The only difference is that Serral was in the right bottom side and Neeb was in the left top side. And I really felt with how late Neeb saw it, Serral should have just won the game immediately. But he actually kind of made a mistake with his Zerglings. He sort of got surrounded, was forced to take a bad fight, was a bit indecisive. And in the end, the game was sort of even. I'm not going to say that Serral was behind or ahead, but I really feel like he should have just straight up won the game because Neeb did not scout. Right now, Neeb still hasn't scouted either. You might actually see it with the probe. No, he's going to bring it back. He's going to warp into 7x score first. So he doesn't start a Zealot yet. This is supposed to be really, really bad for Neeb. We'll see how he handles it. Now Serral sees the probe, so he can avoid it. Maybe. Oh my goodness. Yes, he does. Okay, well, at least Neeb is buying time for himself because now the Lings are forced to take a very awkward route. But if you lose that pylon, then you can't produce that Zealot or the Adept.
Yeah, it all falls apart real quick. So
here we go again.
I like this. Serral learning from previous matches against the same opponent, and now he sees the length. They're going to come in straight for that pylon. Not even anything in production yet. So the cybernetics core finishes. You can start the Adept, but that pylon should die before the probes arrive.
Yep, and now you just keep running, right? Like every time that the probes want to fight, you just run away. This is a really good fight so far, I think, for Serral. This is going much better than it went last time. Don't get surrounded again, though. He sort of gets a little bit surrounded. Now, this is a lot of lost mining time, but Neeb had more workers to begin with, but now 2 extra Lings show up, and this is not becoming a pleasant fight anymore at all for Neeb.
No, absolutely not. That pylon does finish. So the
Adept go for the pylon again.
Back into work, and he'd rather just keep the Lings here fighting against the probes, of course. Zergling's that fun unit. They do a lot of damage, but they actually have less health than the workers, so if they can get surrounds on them and all attack at once, the probes can kind of fight back. But man, this is just so many losses already in terms of the mining time as well as the few probes that have been picked off, and Serral just doing some devastating damage at the start of game number 2.
I feel like it could have even been worse, though. I really feel that Serral missed a minor opportunity there. Why didn't he have 2 or 3 Lings there in the front and just put hold position? And then he would have been able to get some constant damage off. Of course, I guess he was afraid he was getting surrounded, but I would have actually liked to see him return and go for the pylon again, because as long as Neeb cannot build his Adept, the probes will always have to come towards the Zerglings anyway, right? Like, what are you going to do? Ignore the fact that your gate is unpowered? Then you can never fight those Lings. So I actually think if he would have gone for the pylon again, that would have been better. I think it's a good start for Neeb, but it's, for Serral, but it's not as disastrous for Neeb as I thought it was going to be.
All right, the Adept is going to shade into the main base. Neeb wants to know what's going on, takes one shot at a drone, and it turns into a Spore, going for 1 kill. He does kill a single drone.
He don't really want to lose the Adept. Losing the Adept that quickly is actually a bit scary because now once again Neeb will have 0 map presence. He will not know what's happening on the other side of the map. Obviously Neeb's builder has been thrown off as well. Wow, okay, well.
That's a play.
4-minute third base after losing like 7 or 8 probes already against the 12 pool, and also not having any vision on the other side of the map.
Do Do you think he's just hoping that Serral doesn't attack him? Seems like a bold move.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But now there's 12 Zerglings on the way, and I don't think you can keep the Nexus alive, Nate.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be tricky. Ling speed is coming in too. So what does he have? Just a Stalker and 2 sentries now? That's...
He is going to have to give up that Nexus.
Yeah.
I don't believe you can ever keep that alive.
Warp Gate's not even done yet, so his next unit is still going to be a little ways away.
You got to be very careful with the sentries as well, because if the sentries are on the other side of the wall, and look how good Serral is. He just like knows there is a scout coming and he just keeps avoiding the scouts even. Who hides his units from a hallucinated phoenix in the middle of the map, Nate?
The world champion, Kevin Fatu. Just around on that Nexus from the Zerglings, and I mean, yeah, no. Neeb's not going to try to contest this. He falls back. His Warp Gate's done. He warps on the Stalker, but this is it. He's going to have to cancel it.
Yep.
Not sure he wants to make a play for that, and he won't. Even more Lings arrive, so it's a good thing he didn't try to take that fight, but he's just got Stalkers, which also feels a little bit weird.
No, it absolutely does. I don't know what he's going to go for. Is he going to go to Blink Sentry or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is he going to channel his inner Lilba? Okay, resonating glaives. I guess he used the Stalkers maybe to make sure that an Overlord doesn't scout this, but now there is a Roach Warren on the way. Yeah, I don't know. Like, some people may look at this and be like, well, is it really that bad? Oh, that's actually not a good army to fight Zerglings at all. Nate. The recall, but doesn't get everything. He's going to lose 1 sentry, 2 sentries. How many units went down there? I feel like almost everything. Okay, now it's a disaster. It was bad. No cancel! Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm not even mad, mate.
Serral just, he dumpstered him, Kevin. That was an absolute slaughter by the world champion against our American Protoss Hope, and all of a sudden, you know, okay, I came into this really hype, but Serral's just like, I'm not here to play games.
I have lost before. I did not like it.
You know what it's turning into. You bring in the Dragon Ball Z reference. Serral is saying, "You're not the guy I even want to fight. I'm looking. Give me Rainer." It's like, can we move on?
I do believe we're going to head over to a very quick break. Maybe Neeb needs a second to collect his thoughts. And after that, we'll be back with Game 3 between Neeb and Serral.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series. I'm Nathaniel, joined by Rotterdam, and we are getting ready for game number 3 of our second semifinal here in WCS Fall to find out who's going to face off against Raynor in the grand finals. Currently trailing 0-2 is the American Protoss, Neeb, who has struggled against some aggression from Serral, bringing it to him every game. Neeb has not been allowed to play out any of his game plans, Kev.
Absolutely not. I mean, game 1, maybe a tiny bit in the beginning with his Archon drop, but that didn't feel smooth. He already felt threw off a little bit, maybe by the Zerglings in his main base. He was distracted and stuff, but it really hasn't been his series at all. Nate, I do still want to point out, by the way, that Serral at the moment is on an absolute warpath. He's 12-0 in this tournament, okay? He hasn't dropped a single freaking map. The best performance Serral's ever had when it came to winning a WCS circuit was going 17-3 in maps. He's done that twice. He won once winning the tournament with dropping 4 maps. So far, he's flawless, undefeated. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I don't know that he'll be able to do that against the Italian Stallion, but let's find out if he can make it happen against this man in the Northwest. Needs 3 in a row to come back. He is Neeb.
A very, very frustrating second game. No other way to put it. The 12 pull definitely put him behind, put him in an awkward spot. Then he rolled the dice and he got punished by this man who shows us that you can't cut any corners against him. If you want to beat him, you're going to have to outplay him. Representing ENS, hailing from Finland, it is Serral.
Some loud cheers coming out of the crowd. You guys have been awesome.
I love that sign. Serral, please take a sabbatical.
Why don't you go get a nice cabin on the property your country gave you because you're so good at video games and let somebody else win a title for once at one of these big offline events? How does that sound?
You know, they always tell me that I look tired, but we should always tell Serral that he looks tired. Like, take a break, man. Like, aren't you tired of winning all these events?
Don't you want to spend some of that money at the beach? Get yourself a little bungalow, enjoy the sunshine.
What is it good for Serral if all you do is have a win? And you say, like, you don't think he's going to be able to do it against Raynor if he makes it into that grand final with a 3-0 victory here. But didn't he just 4-0 him in Challenger, or was that a 3-0 in the grand finals? It was either 3 or 4-0. I don't know what you guys played.
He dominated him, but I do feel, I don't know. I think Raynor, as far as players that we've hyped to this level.
Oh, of course.
He's the only guy that could.
No, absolutely. And he's done it multiple times. Raynor is absolutely fantastic. But I do feel that Serral, in a way, he almost gets angry. And I feel like even a bad Serral, an out-of-shape Serral, is still incredibly good. But I think right now he's not just good. I really feel that he's like in God mode again or something. Like, you know, a couple of tournaments he showed up and he's still pretty much the best player that goes out there. But he has a couple of holes and maybe he's not as focused, maybe he's not as sharp. You know, ever since GSL vs. the World, I feel like right after he lost at Aces ROG, I really feel like he took a hard look in the mirror and he's like, hey, I've actually just like not won the last 2 tournaments in a row. This is pretty insane. I'm going to start winning again. I feel like, I mean, leveling up while you're already at the top sounds weird and hard, but I feel like he's on another level again, Nate.
It just goes to show when you have a player like Neeb, who I thought, you know, I would have said, yeah, he's bulldozing his way through Montreal up to the point where he hit Serral, and it's like, as good as he looked, as sharp as he was, as many good players as he absolutely dumpstered himself, he's going full speed, tons of momentum, straight into Serral, and it's like hitting. I don't even know.
He doesn't look like Neeb, but this is not because of Neeb. It's because of Serral. Serral just does this to his opponents, and it's really hard to put it in the right words because I know that a lot of people will be looking at it like, oh, Neeb is playing poor, Neeb does X wrong, Z wrong. But if he wasn't playing these games against Serral, he'd be able to play his own game. He would look 10 times better the way he always does because we know how freaking good Neeb is, but Serral is just magical, man.
No, he really is. He really has this special power to make, I mean, even a guy like Neeb himself said in his interview where he says, well, I have to play against Serral, so no matter how well I play, I know that this is probably going to be the end, and I'm already happy. He said he's happy with this tournament result. This is the best he could have asked for, and as weird as that might sound, when you have to play Serral, it usually is the best result you're going to be able to get.
Yeah, he said
all the way up to hitting him.
He said it before on the main stage, right? He's like, well, I'll probably make it to the semifinals, and if I then lose against Serral, that would be sort of okay. And that's, of course, a weird mindset, but Yeah, I mean, these guys, this is not the first rodeo. It's not the first time they go up against the Finnish phenom. But let's hope that Neeb gets a little bit of momentum, Nate. We're not going to talk him out of it. He's opening up with Stargate this time. We have seen Serral, I don't want to say crumble, but struggle a little bit against some of these Oracle builds from Stats. Now, of course, when Stats does it, the execution is next level. But Neeb is very, very good too. So let's see if Neeb can find some economic damage with these Oracles and maybe just frustrate Serral a little bit, because so far it's going way too smooth, it's going way too easy.
Yeah, I do really like that Neeb is switching it up. I think trying a few different things has got to be the way, getting into some sort of comfortable rhythm. And the Stargate is going to afford you a little bit of that, right? Serral, we talk about how he likes to map control, be aggressive, be out on the map. Well, you know what? You want to get a third base? Oracles are going to be able to help you do that against Zerglings if you don't throw them away, if you don't lose them. That first initial poke doesn't do too much. Really nice Spore Crawler placement. The drones just go to the right side, so no kills there. But the 3 Oracles, that's kind of been a big conversation in PvZ, right? It was over the last month. A lot of Protoss players, Stats, great person to bring up for this. The Oracle retention was a huge part of that, for being able to use the stasis traps during the fights, but also being able to have 3 Oracles gives you a tremendous amount of stopping power, even against Roaches if they try to make a play on your third.
Yep, it's safe, but at the same time, it's super good because you have so much presence on the other side of the map. You're always going to be able to scout, and it's a frustrating style to go up against as a Zerg. You don't want to make too many mistakes. The first queen goes down, and that was the queen, Nate, with the most energy. So now the second queen is going to go down as well. Queen number 3 does get at least 1 kill on the Oracle, but should not be able to get the second one.
That's awesome.
I think I'm okay with this for Neeb.
That's a pretty good pick. He loses the Oracle, but he gets those 2 queens, gets a few drones. I feel like even if it's not the craziest pickoff, I think from Neeb's perspective, he might be like, this is about as much as I could ask for against Serral. Yeah. And I'm hoping that it gives him a little bit of a confidence boost in this match, because it is one of the concerns that I do have. Charge starts up, but also that Spire, Roddy.
Yeah, that's a fast Spire. I don't know if I would expect that if I was Neeb. I haven't really seen Serral go for Spires, actually, against his opening too many times. I've seen him play a lot of Spire, obviously, after the Roaches in more traditional games, but against this one, I haven't seen it that often. Curious to see how it plays out. Serral's already banking quite a bit of minerals, but obviously he's waiting for that Spire to finish up. If Neeb moves out now, and Warp Prism is on the way, it's going to take a little while, but that would be sweet because he's going to force out a lot of units that Serral does not want to make. But obviously then Neeb needs to make damn sure that he doesn't just throw away his army, because Roaches and Lynx can do very well against small Protoss forces.
I got a little nervous as Mappa was showing us that wall. It kind of might look like it might have been a little bit of a Roddy zealot over there, Kev. That makes me, I'm sweating a little.
Okay,
that Prism coming with charge gives a lot of opportunity. Some Lings are going to make their way over here, though. Going to force a warp in of Zealots to defend against this, but loses 5 probes immediately.
It's so good what Serral does there, because he forces a defensive warp in, which means that the push is going to be delayed, and he just gets 5 probe, and he gets out of there with the Zerglings as well. Now the Mutas are already on the way, and has Neeb seen that Spire? As far as I know, he is completely unaware.
Nope, he has no idea it's there. 10 meters are going to come out. Maybe it's a good thing he didn't commit, because if he didn't warp in, I don't think he can. I don't think he has any Archons with that army. Nope. Not really much anti-air, so I guess he could have lost the Immortals and the Sentries pretty quickly. He got caught off guard.
The Hydra then, though. I wonder if that's for Lurkers later on.
Oh, no. Okay, well, he knows about the Mutas now, so they're going to get the Oracle. Tags the Revelation on the weak one. And the other Oracle should not really be able to get away, so you may as well just throw it in there and see what else you can find.
All right.
I love that Serral turns around away from it, too. He's like, well, I know. He's like, you have conceded your Oracle. I will go harass you now.
There it is, by the way. Straight Lurker then. I was about to say, like, Hydras would feel a tiny bit odd here if it's just Hydras, especially with Storm on the way already. So look at Serral. 16 drones, a couple of upgrades, a Lurker then, an Infestation Pit, while he's harassing with Mutas and also making damn sure that Neeb is staying on 3 bases. Nate, we were talking about Neeb being able to play his game, pushing the pace a little bit. It's not happening. This is once again Serral's space.
No, Serral has taken control of the game yet again. These Mutas have done a tremendous amount of damage. 81 drones to 51 probes, and Big Daddy Archon is out, but you lost 20 workers. He starts a second Stargate, but as you already pointed out, Roddy, the transition into the Lurkers has already begun.
You know what I would do right now if I was Neeb? I'd be like, you know what? I'm never going to attack, and I'm just going to turtle up to carry it. I'm going to stay in this game as long as I can, and I hope you take the absolute worst fight ever or something. Well, obviously, I really don't know. I'm always like trying to find out a way, like what could go well for Neeb. Now, obviously, if he gets amazing storms and the Archons survive and the Immortals can get on top of Lurkers, stuff like that, I don't want to count him out yet, but it's looking really dark, Nate. He's outnumbered, he's outmined, he's down in bases, he's down in vision by a lot. He has no idea what he's playing against. And to be quite honest, I'm actually quite confused about the second Stargate and stuff right now. Like, does he think he's playing against 1,000,000 mutas or something? Like, I have no idea.
Yeah, he hasn't recommitted to it. He did build, what was it, 10 to begin with, but yeah, I guess he wants to have it in his pocket. I mean, lurkers and hydras are coming onto the field with a ton of zerglings to support.
Yep, at least there are a couple of Archons in the mix, and there is Storm. Now, as soon as there is +2, now there is a second Robo being added as well. Neeb is going to need a miraculous fight, guys. He's going to need maybe some good Force Fields, a great Guardian Shield, Storm, and some good Focus Fire, I think, with the Immortals as well. Otherwise, Nate, he's going to have a very, very tough time weathering the Storm here. Oh my goodness, it's all Drop Lords as well.
Well,
does he have Blink? Does he have Blink?
Yes, he does. He doesn't see it. Okay, well, these Stalkers should be able to grab maybe 1 or 2 of the Overlords before they unload. If they can get the one that has the Lurkers in it. Okay, units are coming out. Does not immediately react to that. And oh goodness gracious, Roddy. 4 Lurkers burrow inside the main of Neeb. Those Stalkers are going to get blown to pieces. And I'm not entirely sure how he dislodges this. Going to warp in some Zealots, bring the rest of the army forward, but Serral, anticipating this, has an army outside of that 4th base, and he's just going to descend upon that real quick.
And a free Archon there as well, so that is still no 4th base again. Neeb, not once in his entire best of 5 so far, has been able to mine off 4 bases. He's going to try to take a fight on the low ground here, and he does have a lot of Storms. He's got 2 Immortals in the mix as well, but I don't see an Observer here anymore, right? Did he lose the Observer? There's Overseers in the mix as well. There are 2 Observers out on the map. Not exactly sure. Okay, they're with the main army in the main base.
That's useful, but this army is still pushing up against him. That Lurker and the Hydras doing plenty of work. The Immortals are nice, but there's not really anything here to support them, so they can't get up close to those Lurkers. And another one is going to be able to be picked off. As far as the Stalkers go, does get that. And Serral just retreats. He's like, hey, I still got the mutas. Don't forget about those. Also, we should keep in mind, he could also go for a drop again at any point. He has a ton of drop Overlords that are just chilling over there on the west side.
I see 7 Corruptors now. I don't think we have a Great Aspire yet. I'd be very surprised if I... Oh, we do, actually. Well, all right, during all of that, Nate, he got a Great Aspire as well. Why the hell not? We do find an Archon. Like you said, we can always still see some drop plays. Neeb is just trying to get his 4 bases up and running. I mean, Neeb has a little bit of money in the bank. He actually had pretty good defense there, all things considered. That wasn't an easy situation to deal with. I still think he's in quite some trouble this game, but he's alive, Nate. He's breathing.
Yeah, well, for how long, I guess, becomes the primary question of this game of StarCraft. As Serral comes in, he's going to poke away at some more of these Stalkers in the main base. He wants to force a reaction. He wants to force more Stalker warp-ins so that those Lurkers can continue to do tons of damage. The Broodlords are morphing.
I mean, now we see double Immortal production while the Broodlords are out already. In general, whenever you go up against Broodlords, you want to get rid of the Immortals by then, right?
Yep.
We always see that as Protoss players splitting up their army, a couple of Immortals right-clicking on a base. Let's get a better army to fight those Broodlords. Neeb is just... He's not 1 step behind in general in these games. It feels like he's almost 3 steps behind, Nate. Serral's outclassing him today. I'm a massive Neeb fan, and I absolutely am convinced that Neeb has the skills to push Serral to the limit and also defeat him in the series, but today is not the day. Serral is looking unstoppable.
This army, the giant hammer of Finland, coming down to crash upon Neeb. The Overlords are going to see that prism as they make their way over. The Muta, the last Muta, will poke against them, but here you go. A Protoss army with nary an anti-air unit against Broodlords at your 4th.
Jonas Atala has not lost a single map yet in this entire tournament. He's 12-0 so far. And Nate, I think we are moments away from seeing Serral go 13-0 in this tournament. It is absolutely ridiculous what he is showing so far. I think he's angry, Nate. He's on a mission. And I don't see Neeb ever coming back in this game.
No, he's so far behind. Lurkers underneath. The Broodlords help cover the Zerglings in the main base that get dropped. The Warp in his force there, but despite everything, even if he hasn't lost the army yet, he will lose the 4th, and it is just a matter of time as Serral has completely swallowed the bottom half of this map, taking more and more bases. Neeb starts a fleet beacon.
Yeah, I feel like that's a bit mistimed as well, because he already had 2 Stargates, if I'm not mistaken, and then he made 2 more Stargates, and then he made the fleet beacon. Well, normally you go 1 Stargate, fleet beacon, 2 more Stargates, so you would have had 3 Tempests on the way already, and they could have been starting to work on those Broodlords. Look at the High Templars, by the way, they're very clumped up. That is scary against the Lurkers, but I'm just so worried, man. It really feels that Neeb's army is not capable of fighting the army of Serral. Serral's army has higher tech and better upgrades, Nate.
Just everything coming up aces here for Serral. Look at it. He's a 90 larva, too. Whatever he needs to make, not only can he afford to make it, but he has the production to do so as well. Just trading out, looking for those opportunities to fight. And nothing to contest these Broodlords still. So, yeah, he's going to try and get that air up. 3 Tempests are on the way. But there's a significant period of time now before that is available. And during that period of time, Neeb is just bleeding out.
He's blinking forward into a couple lurkers, Nate, and Broodlords that are near untouchable terrain there as well. The Immortals, you guys can see why I said you don't really want to have Immortals against Broodlords. They just become very derpy. They start running around. They're kind of useless here. The Tempests are on the way, but they should have been here already, Nate. Neeb had the resources to get them out a little bit quicker, and he absolutely had the time to get that fleet beacon up quicker as well. Maybe it was just a mistake. He does still have that fort base on the right top side, but he's losing a third, and most likely he's going to lose the fort as well. It is looking very, very grim for the American Protoss.
Yeah, Tempests are going to come out and start to blast away at the Broodlords. This is really the last-ditch effort that Neeb can make, and it will all be for these Broodlords. Serral has 4,000 minerals, 3,000 gas. He has so much in the bank. Once this army is dead, he's going to have another one. GG, Serral takes the 3-0, eliminating Neeb and moving on to the grand finals of WCS Fall.
That was a pretty flawless victory, if you ask me, Nate. That was very, very convincing. In the past, Neeb has really pushed Serral to the limit. Even if the scoreline often said 3-0 or 3-1, those games were often very, very close. This time it just wasn't close. Serral simply a little too good. Serral makes it to the grand finals of this WCS circuit without dropping a map. That's unbelievable. Let's hear from the man himself as he's on stage with Cloaken.
Thanks so much, Kev. That's right, I'm here with Serral. Serral, 13-0 in this tournament. That was an incredible series against Neeb. Last time we spoke, you said he was probably the opponent you were fearing the most to get to the furthest point in this tournament. Did that go better than you expected?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm actually pretty surprised how well it went. Obviously, the first game, I think the first game, for example, went super well. Like everything went like I planned. I got the scout. My response was pretty good. I think it would have probably already ended on the first attack, but I missed microed very badly. And the second game was just a build order win. And yeah, otherwise, I don't know. I just kind of things went my way this time. And when that happens in StarCraft, you can just win games. So.
All right, well, last time you went to the grand finals on the WCS stage, you faced Raynor as well. He ended up taking the victory over you, 4-2. How are you going to change up your game plan facing him on a familiar stage today?
I don't think I need to change my game plan all too much. I still threw a couple games last time, I remember, and obviously Raynor is going to be a very hard opponent, but CVC is it's my best matchup, I would say. I'm very confident in that one. So if I just manage to play my game, I really feel like I should be able to win the match. But yeah, last time didn't go so well, so we'll see how it goes this time.
All right, well, just like Raynor, I want to give you a chance. What would you like to say to this crowd here in this audience, the live stream, who's watching, your friends, your supporting fans? Any words for them before we see you in the finals today?
Yeah, we're having a CVC again, sadly, but I hope we can make some good games. We normally do with Raynor, and yeah, the crowd has just been awesome, and I hope it keeps going this way.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Serral. Good luck in the grand finals. We're back to you, Kalaris.
So this is how StarCraft 2 democracy ends, with thunderous applause. Darth Serral is going to be the chancellor here of the StarCraft 2 Galactic Senate, and he is going to unite the universe under one empire. He's going to be marching on into the grand final, where he remains his last threat, his nemesis in Raynor, and it is going to be a best of 7. Serral and Raynor once again, Todd.
Him losing 2 finals recently was him saying, I'm so weak.
I'm so weak. Unlimited power! Oh my.
That's what we're seeing here, exactly.
That's
Him coming back with a revenge. 13-0. Like, when has that ever happened? It's incredible, like what we're seeing.
No, well, maybe. I think that was actually Neeb losing that one map, but yeah, so that's never happened. I don't believe so.
Unbelievable. He hasn't won yet, but yeah, 13-0 up to this point, going to the grand finals with a rematch of the last one. This is just... It's amazing. Like
Yeah.
honestly, like again, like it's a ZVZ and like not the most popular matchup out there,
sure.
but between like just the story makes up for it
I enjoyed the
10 times fold.
sadly. But, it's what it is. And again, ultimately, I personally, Jess, would have it no other way, considering the two looming shadows that have been stood across all of WCS this year. It really has been Serral, and it really has been Reina. So it's great to see them once again in another grand final.
Absolutely. And the same grand final that really jump-started Rainer's career, like it started this whole story, and it's happening again at the same city, WCS Fall at Montreal, man. Once again, these two. So it's actually a beautiful story to look at it. And I know everyone's like ZVZ, even Serral apologized for the ZVZ. But like, I'm going to go ahead and appeal and say that this is actually usually the best type of ZVZ, even if it's a 4-0. They always give us really great games, different types of games too. Please don't tune away just for the ZVZ. It's actually super amazing.
I don't think that even is required. Let's be honest. These two transcend everything that is about. It is not about if it's a ZVZ or anything like that. It doesn't matter if it's a ZVT or a ZVP. I couldn't give a damn what race these guys play. Watching these two play off against one another is something of beauty when you see how far something like StarCraft 2 has gone to be able to show this kind of level. Right?
You just got the promo for BlizzCon. You're like, that was great. I love
Right?
it.
Yeah.
No, very well said. Obviously, again, like, mirror matchup, not always the most popular, but regardless of what race you play, like you have to applaud the skill of these two.
Absolutely.
They've been playing incredible, and both of these guys now are absolutely at the top of the circuit.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Let's check in with the bracket as well, because we can see exactly how these two have been able to move through the bracket yet again here. Back to back, the same final as Reina was able to defeat Special in the round of 4, and Serral was able to defeat Neeb. We are going to have this once again. It's a great moment here to be able to witness these guys go head-to-head in a best-of-7, because one of the only people that has ever been able to stop Serral on a stage like this is Reina. Todd?
And the only guy that ever stopped Raider was Serral.
Yes.
It's a match made in heaven. They can only lose to one another, apparently, pretty much, for the most part. So it's great, again, to see them face off in a rematch of the recent WCS circuit.
Todd, actually, whilst all of that was going on, you were able to pick out something from game number 1 that I would like to show here.
Yes, I would like to try and point out some of Serral's brilliance. And it's very hard to do just because he's so smart, and apparently he lives in the future. So we're at the point here where he just maxed out in game number 1, and he's on a Lair Tech army while going for Great Aspire. And he's got a ton of Banelings and Ravagers. So instead of just trying to reach those Broodlords, he wants to try and trade some of those units to extend his advantage. Whereas Neeb, he has a pretty scary army, but he's not maxed out yet. So this is like a big window for Serral to try and do damage.
Yeah.
There is a lot of Archons, but he's not maxed out because he was making Archons out of Dark Templars. So here's what Serral's going to do. He's going to posture on the left-hand side. And even though this gets spotted, he can still react however he wants to here once he sees what's there. While he does that, he knows that Neeb's going to be looking here. He knows that before Neeb even knows that himself. At the same time, he's going to go there and attack. Meanwhile, he keeps his army ready there. So he goes in there, sees that this is sealed off, immediately sends the Banelings towards that location. And right now, if you look at the supply, which I definitely was,
You're doing that.
162 to 198. Neeb is not out of this game. Like, he's still very well in it. Like, he should be maxing out in a couple minutes. But Serral is going to say, actually, I know that you're going to be looking over there, so it's going to be harder for you to look there. The defense at first wasn't too bad, but then that last detonation, killing 20 probes, is really what sets Neeb so far back. 136 to 199. He kind of lost patience. He moved out. He didn't have Storm against this army, which you need. You really need Storm against this army so that you can kill a lot of Banelings before they can connect. And yeah, eventually we just saw Neeb move out. And I mean, even to 121 to 199 here, that kind of tells the story. It just didn't have enough anymore at this point.
I mean, even in the final game, Jess, where Serral was dropping in the main base, then he had an army hitting the base that was being created, and there were mutas on the right-hand side as well. It sort of feels like in some of these situations, Serral has more than is physically possible when it comes to a 200-200 situation.
I mean, yeah, that can be an accurate way to describe how Serral looks when he's playing. I think it has to do with just how much he's able to make the right decisions and sacrifice that army at the right time, so that every time you're like, oh, he lost the mutas, you look back and it's still a lot more. So it always seems like he's maxed out and always has the right choices, and as such, it's like, well, you're like 300 supply, right? Because you just always have stuff coming. No, he's actually at 200, but he's just working it really well.
Yeah.
He did have 203 at some point.
Did he? Oh, yeah. Of course he did. All right, well, thank you very much, guys. It is now time for a break here for a WCS Fall, but you need to stay tuned because once again, 1 year ago, this final did occur. Serral was the victor, and not a few months ago in the WCS circuit, Reina was able to defeat Serral in a grand final on the WCS stage. It is going to be another grand final here between Reina and Serral, the two biggest and best in the WCS. Will go head to head. We'll see you in a few.